Hello and welcome to the first tier listing. We're going to be looking at Separatist today. This is going to be a bit of a informal video just to help newer players try and organise their armies, or at least know what to buy. And since we've got another 6 months to the next update for all the major factions, so this is the best time to try and get this done. Separatists are a pretty strong faction at the moment, as if you haven't looked at any of the ratings yet online for the tournament scene, they are the top faction currently. Due to a lot of factions, one of the best things about them is obviously their order control, but they also got, lack of a better word, the best overhaul out of all the factions, in that their core units became insanely good compared to all the other factions. So to start with, we're going to be looking at the B1s here. B1s easily fall into the A tier here. B1's ability to coordinate and give you order control, but also they give you kind of a lotto gun where the ceiling is incredibly high, so you may not always hit it if you take a reinforced squad and sitting there with 16 guys. However, throwing the amount of dice that they do, and for under 100 points, I think they're clocking around 94 points currently, you can spam these guys out and just go crit fishing on any armor units. Plus, no unit in the game can delete the entire squad in one hit, meaning at least 2 activations will have to sink their shots in to killing B1s. And no one's ever really happy at killing B1s. They are a low priority unit compared to some of the other units, such as B2s or commando droids, so you don't really want to be wasting priority shots into them. But if you take masses of them, you definitely force your opponent into dealing with them. Just watch out for flamethrowers. They will delete the entire squad. They're the only units they can do it. So Boba Fett, Din, Dewbacks, AT-ATs with flamers, they're all the B1's worst nightmare. Let's move on to Droidicas here. Droidicas are in an interesting slot. They are between... There's an argument that they are S tier because of their points costing. However, points can change quite abruptly. So we're going to put them in A tier. Their movement allows Separatists to easily get onto objectives with going into bull mode. And with order control, you can either guarantee you want to go with them first or go with them last. I generally advise going with them last because it helps with just getting onto those objectives, and then your shields are up so you're not as vulnerable. But don't be deceived, they are incredibly fragile even with their shields. Most decent units will throw out about anywhere to about 9 to 11 dice, and they will absolutely shred Droidicas. There won't be any units left. So the best way to play these guys is to give them as a option for your opponent to shoot, but put something else more threatening nearby. So at least these guys will score or do backfield objectives, or never forget they have suppression. So if you target one unit after they've activated, you could panic a unit, and that unit doesn't get to score on that VP. Onto our first hero here, General Grievous. General Grievous got nerfed recently with the loss of comms relay. So the old trick was to give his Magna Gag comms relay and bounce them back on the order back onto him, so he could always have an order on himself. However, he is still S tier currently. This is mainly due to his 2-pip and his command cards. His 1-pip and his 3-pip are basically write-offs. The 3-pip is just a win more card. If you're already winning, you win more and get more surges, so it's kind of redundant. His 1-pip, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's either a dive card or it wants to run away card with disengage. It's generally not as strong as a lot of 1-pips you'd want them to do. However, his strength is with the Ruthless keyword, giving these mass B1s or B2s an extra free action, so that could be double moving, or hell, even if you wanted to double move, shoot, or take an aim and a dodge and shoot. It just increases the efficiency of all your core, and because your core is so cheap, it really makes a difference, and the cost of only 1 wound, you don't really care about it too much. Grievous can also kind of roadblock a lot of units just with his innate as a lightsaber unit, and his gun isn't too bad just for plinking shots off people. However, I always recommend up close and personal for newer players, simply because if you do the 1 pip dive card, which is what a lot of new players do constantly, you'll get a million dodges off it, so you won't lose Grievous immediately. Alright, so we're on to Dooku. Dooku is very expensive, and one of the only units in the game, well, one of 2 units in the game that can ignore Pierce, so it can be very reliable. However, you do pay for it. A good example of this is his base cost, I believe, is 165, or his upgraded cost is around 165 for his most efficient build. A full squad of B2s fully upgraded with the extra guys, so you're rocking to 8, will cost you 165. So there's an argument to say that he's incredibly good because he's one of the 2 units in the game that can. However, I will be a little bit controversial here, and I'm going to put Dooku in B tier. A lot of Separatist players will probably disagree with this. However, for me personally, I've had the most success in lists that really emphasize more on the horde style or multi-wound units. And if you're taking such an expensive unit that that while yes can delete and threaten a lot of other units, you're not getting enough red saves or multi-wound units elsewhere in your list. It is important to note that he does have cunning, so for newer players that would mean that if you tied with your pip values for his cards, you would win the roll off automatically and go first for that round, so you can catch people unawares. He does have one trick with his lights, what is it called? Throwing his lightsaber. So he gets Arsenal 2 in his attack, and you can get saber throw, that's the word I'm looking for. You can saber throw and use your lightning on one target for something around 9 dice, pierce 3, bunch of impact, surge to crit. It's probably one of the only combos in the game that can reliably pick up any unit. It's reliably going to at least take 3/4 of a ATST's health, or damn, it can almost, if you roll well, it can almost kill an AAT outright. There's no unit in the game it can't threaten. However, it is noted that he's better off being a support piece for the rest of your army, not a dive piece. Because if you do lose Dooku, and heaven forbid if you lose him early, you'll really be on the back foot. His best card is actually his 2 pip, where you can suction orders back into people's pools. Very strong if people play like Anakin's 1 pip and you've got a really bad order pool, so you make them gamble trying to get Anakin out of their own pool, while you probably only have 1 or 2 in there, and you can rig your order stack as a Separatist, so maybe you just have 2 commanders in there and you can get Dooku whenever you want, so there's no real downside. On to the next S unit, don't even need to think too much about this one at the moment, is the B2s. The B2s overhaul with going to red saves and remaining at 2 health, and being able to use 2 blacks in melee and at range 2, along with having inbuilt impact at range 1, just covers everything Separatists were looking for. And the fact that they're a core unit just adds on to the value. If you're playing as a newer player, I highly suggest just taking as your core 3 of these guys, grab the ACM, the 3 red attack dice, heavy upgrade, and your flavor. If you want it to be competitive, it's probably a Viper droid, really cheap extra red save. But back in the day, you could put 3 repair bots on there and repair them, but now they're insanely expensive, so maybe only one of those. These are insane at just sitting on objectives and scoring you points. People will spend probably the entire game trying to remove these off you, without the use of set pieces like Anakin or who else we got, Yoda's and your Luke Skywalker's, just trying to delete them. Most units will take 3 to 4 activations to even kill this squad. And remember, with units like Grievous, you can give extra actions out. So never be afraid to charge into melee with these guys. They can act as a really good deterrent. I would stay away from the mega squad of B2s. It's very tempting to put them all eggs in one basket with them. However, you are very much better off just taking extra activation and keeping them out of the big squad. Alright, so we've got the AAT. The AAT here, unfortunately, it suffers that it costs a lot of points. So it's going to go in D tier. You will rarely see these with snails and aqua droids being able to be chosen over them. They do have some play and some, very counter where they can attack twice with their main cannon, which should screw over commandos with their armor to ignore the wounds, so you can, make them pop it easier. However, they are fragile. The lack of now surges and any way to get surges in this army outside of T series, which, spoiler alert, you'll never take, it just hurt the AAT. So you only ever got a 50-50 chance every time you roll a red dice in this thing. It can be very powerful with one, trying to dump 8 or 9 dice on things. But you got to remember when things like Sleeper Cell exist, where they can reliably hit you with 12 dice for only like 75 points, it just puts the AAT in a really bad spot. It can hurt reliable white saves, but it cannot do reliable damage against red saves, and that's its biggest weakness. Is that majority of the game is red saves. Most of what defines best armies or top tier units will be that red save. But it just can't hurt it, and its own red save, it can't really be supported either. So while it can be cool to maybe throw one in as an anti-armor option, because these things do pack a punch with critical 1 now in build, surge to hit, and a bunch of impact, especially with armor-piercing shells, it just doesn't do the job anymore. Alright, so we've got another BX Commando series droids. The Commandos got a bit of a glow up getting Jump 1, and they are extremely good in the EXD Battle Force, where you would be taking 3 of them if you were going to go that route. However, compared to Magna Guards, there is an argument before and against, so we're going to put them in S tier. But there's still there's an argument for both here. You need to choose between 1 wound red saves, but you have more movement, so you could scout 3, move 2, and charge with Bribro swords, or you can take Magna Guard, who aren't going to be scouting unless you only scout 1 with a crab droid or something, but have 2 wounds each with charge. So they can be. Commandos are very good in certain things like Close the Pocket, where you've got like extra deployment out of the size and you can catch your opponent unawares. But just keep in mind that the more experienced people you play, they're not going to fall for that trap unless they've been drinking too heavily at the event. The most thing to keep in mind with these guys is you're never going to take the sniper. They are still good with the sniper, but it just costs too many points. You're better off just Vibro Sword and Deoxys Mine and just be a really threatening melee unit that can jump out behind height 1 terrain and just engage and tie things up. They really like going after heroes with that poison keyword, and they do pack a punch. I believe it's 6 reds, 5 blacks, and a white for their full melee profile with Vibro Swords and the Deoxys Mine with poison surge to hit. So these guys are no joke. They will elite units, but they hemorrhage a lot. Basic shots will just start peeling guys out left, right, and center. Into the fray, for new players, I would staple it on there. It means that once they're in there, they're going to get surge to defend if units start activating to try and kill them. And don't be fooled into thinking that Impervious doesn't make you scared of Pierce. They are still very scared of Pierce. They lose a lot of efficiency really quickly. Losing 2 guys really hampers them. You're talking 4 dice instantly out of your pool. Alright. So we have the stabs. They are D. If I put E tier on this, they'd be an E. In fact, I don't even like putting them on the list. They are, quote unquote, absolutely terrible. Agile does not make them any way survivable. The only thing they got going for them is their speed 3. Their main guns, still very unreliable. It's only 6 blacks, and you're paying out the nose for it. And basically what Atomic Mass Games is making you pay for is speed 3 units that can move 3 times. You must pay a premium because you can just jump on any objective in the game. However, you're sure as shit not going to be standing there for long, because as soon as something a stiff breeze, these guys are going to fall over and die. they're just not worth it. And the support slot is so highly contested that if you are taking these guys, you better have a certain strategy in mind, or you're a very experienced player and you know how to hold them back to the opportune time with some order control. But you're only going to get one turn of use out of them, and that's the go turn. And if your opponent is wily enough and is ready enough for that, they're not going to do the job for you. So they're just not worth it. Save your money on that one until they do either an update or reduce their point cost down. I would even put these guys at 40 points, and that would still be paying too much, and I still wouldn't be happy paying for that. Alright, on to another hero. We have Maul. Maul is a solid B tier unit. Maul... Separatist Maul, in that he has to wound himself to get it activate his form, which gives him 3 actions, makes him very, very predictable. However, having said that, he combos very well with Aqua Droids, because Aqua Droids can infiltrate, and he can infiltrate as well with one of his command cards. It is sad state of affairs for Maul, though. He actually hates versing other heroes. Despite what his 1 pip might tell you with its name, Jewel of the Fates, he just wants to go infantry. He will mulch anything that is not immune pierce. You just go in there and use him as a piece to start deleting units off objectives or tying other units up. Don't take force push on him. I've seen a lot of people sometimes, staple force push to their force users. He's not one that's going to make any use out of it. Your better options are saber throw, so you can just bunny hop around, jump out, throw your saber, jump behind cover. But just keep in mind that a good Maul player will make you deal that wound instead of playing that command card. So he'll leave it open for that shot, maybe do 1 or 2 damage or something. You'll activate it for him, and then he's got 3 actions. Maul can be easily countered, which is the sad part. If you don't take burst of speed, he basically just needs it to function with infiltrate. Otherwise, he's just kind of in this odd spot where he can't really engage a lot of units or get on objectives easily without just being focus fired down. And the worst part about him is that operatives, unless you specifically tailor for them, really struggle with order control in Separatist. So it kind of forces you into very much playing a style around where you're going to give Maul an order. And again, the cheap, easy way of comms relay bouncing is no longer in the game. So that kind of just hurts him overall. We've got the T-Series Tactical Droid. Back before the, I guess you want to call it Edition 2.0 or whatever they called it these days, T-Series were kind of a common sight. Sometimes you saw them in a few lists. Now they're dead. They're dead to everyone. You take this, you're offering free VPs and marked targets, backup isn't going to save a 4 health white save that doesn't surge. He's just abjectly terrible. You want to stay away from that unit, especially newer players. Like more experienced players, sure, you can try and save points on a cheap commander and done it. But if you just wait for the Build-A-Bear heroes, they'll be the auto taking this slot. But you're better just going in with a super tactical. They just give you so much more in your army, and the fact that you can give 2 surges out does not mean you should be taking these guys. Magna Guard, as we discussed with the BXs, there's a choice between them and the Commandos. Magna Guard they are an S tier, but the biggest but on them is they're only S tier in an experienced player's hand. They are A tier in everyone else's hand. So, and when I say experienced, I don't mean just 20 games under your belt. I'm talking top 15, top 10% of Separatist players will know how to play Magna Guard. And the biggest thing about Magna Guard is you should never really be gardening with them. That is the best bit of advice. You want people to work for the wounds on them by dedicating firepower. And auto control on Magna Guard makes them brutal. If you can hold them, especially if your opponent has an engaging army, if you can hold them and then charge in, they are just abjectly better. It's a sad state of affairs with them that they lost their comms relay, like I said, with Grievous. However, you just do slap into the fray on them and let them go. There's an argument for tenacity as well. However, these guys will be your backline. They will deter any Jedi from ever going in, except for maybe Operative Luke with disengage. However, do keep in mind that you got to keep them cheap. The whip has some versatility now with the recent updates with withdrawing now being a speed 1, and immobilize will in fact stop you from withdrawing out. However, you're better off just taking the standard upgrade die. It's just 22 points. You can staple them on there. Never take the rocket. It's again been costed out of the game for whatever reason. Apparently, the extra aim or dodge it was too much with the rocket, and they decided to absolutely boost its points into oblivion. The other thing I can say with retinue is you always want to be taking a dodge. There's a very few or very rare you're going to ever take a aim. I wouldn't even recommend it even if you're in melee. These guys like to go last. Like you're not having auto control on them. You're not prioritize going with them. They just take the dodge. It just makes it suddenly a lightsaber user with 5 dice can only do 4 wounds maximum, and you're into the fray, which means 75% chance of saving now. If you get a surge, it just makes them more durable. Alright, so I believe this is Kraken. Kraken is our first C tier. The recent changes with how AI and commanders work, being that you can just be within the range of commander to ignore AI, means that override, even though it got bounced quite high, it just lost a lot of its value, unfortunately. Kraken can be good and in a full send list if you're just looking for the super tactical droids and you don't need the support piece of Kalani. The recent loss of the generic super tactical, stopped him from being D tier. However, the Build-A-Bear hero will just put him back into irrelevance again. He just struggles when there's so many other better melee options. You're better off just taking a full Magna Guard squad instead of trying to take anything that he can bring. He's still expensive. He's still paying a premium for it, and he's just not worth it, unfortunately. Kalani is A tier at the moment. Argument could be S tier because the generic is gone, but I'm keeping in mind that we've got the Build-A-Bear heroes coming, and they'll automatically be in S tier if anyone didn't know. Just building your own abilities and basically for cheaper as well, as long as you don't go too stupidly overboard with them, will make them S tier. However, Kalani's A. The strategize is nice. Just remember you're giving up any momentum if you're trying to use it, which means you want to go with Kalani, strategize other units to give them their aims and dodges, and then you pass the turn over, so the other person gets to choose the engagements first. Kalani reinforcements on Kalani is just terrible. The easiest thing you want to do with him is you want to take recon intel if you do have the points, so he can recon on intel onto the board, strategize, and then take an aim, so he can have 2 aims and a dodge himself to exemplar out turn 1. But he's just a backfield piece. Other than just being a support, that's all he's going to do. He might jump on a backfield objective or something at the end of the game, but other than that, he's not doing anything else. Dwarf Spider Droid. Now, the worst part about the Dwarf Spider Droid is that he is technically good, and you can still make incredible lists with them. However, the support slot is so jammed full of really good options that you will basically never see these guys now. So there's an argument for D tier here, just because there's better options than them, but because they are still functional, I'm gonna slap them in C. Never forget that Ion is still really good, and that range 4 fire bases are still extremely good as well. So a Spider Droid can just at any point decide to, start flinging dice at anyone. If it's a vehicle or a droid, all the better with its ion gun. The loadout, there is an argument for the Flamer as well, and these lots of, especially newer players take really reinforced units. But I do suggest people just stay away from them. They're just not as threatening, I'm afraid. But stay with the ion gun, and if you're going to do it, you're going to move, if you're going to take 1, you're going to take 3, so they're going to be your entire support slot. You never just have 1 floating around. So these guys, 3 of them are just going to move into an objective, probably with Kalani, and they're going to take the precision upgrade, which I believe is AI attack, and they're just going to sit there and fling dice out at anything that's on any other objective that they can reach with their range 4 gun. The Snail Tank. Snail Tank is a solid B tier option currently. Never underestimate transport, especially in a big pill base. And if you can get them behind cover, experienced players can, sometimes even make it impossible to shoot the disembarked unit. The Snail Tank still suffers the same issue as the ATS is that it wants to shoot, but it also wants the line of sight block, and it doesn't have a very good dice pool, but it does fling quite a bit of dice. Its arsenal can be nice. The EXD version of this is S tier, just so everyone knows, but I'm just excluding that from these basic tier lists. But the easiest thing to remind people with the Snail Tank is that there are certain objectives like destroy enemy base, or I believe it's recover the intel. What's the other one? Recover the research. It can sit on 2 objectives at once, just with its massive pill base. So they are a very good unit, but just keep in mind that they aren't going to perform as a damage unit. They are kind of a mixed role. They used to be, you fill the role of the Aquadroids in that they would line of sight block and stuff, but now Aquadroids are just so much better. Pike Syndicate, D tier. You already got awesome core. You got the best core in the game. These guys are just so superfluous that you're not going to take them. They bring nothing to the table that Separatists want. They can be tanky, don't get me wrong, or annoying to get off objectives, but a B2 unit is just going to be better overall. And in the same vein, the Capo D tier. If there was an E tier, I'd throw both these guys in there. It's going to be the same for the Black Sun. Black Sun are still incredibly good. There is a bit of play with them with the Snail Tank, but B2s just hit harder and they cost around them out the same. The Vigo is going in there as well for the same reasons. There's just no point in taking them. Just stay away from mercenaries that aren't heroes and Separatists. They're not going to do you any favors. They're going to hurt your army. In fact, that can be said for mercenaries in 90% of lists. There's very rare now that you're going to see them outside Shadow Collective. AMG's taken steps with the rework that it just seems that you're better overall than always taking your own core. Alright, so on to Bosk. Bosk used to be very good up until the update with covers, but now with the new cover system, sadly Bosk is C tier. Bosk's only good command card is going to be his double attack. There's no real way to give him aim abuse, like multiple aims outside his own activation. And don't be deceived, he will just die. There are units like Sleeper Cell which will dump 12 dice, or God forbid arcs or anything like that. They will just kill him. Very unlikely even to roll surges. Just remember, surging whites isn't a guarantee. It should be a surprise when you roll it and he actually survives, but 9 times out of 10 he's going to die. He's not going to pick up any squads for you. He's probably going to take 1 or 2 guys out, and for his points cost, it's just better to take BX droids or Magna Guards and invest those points. Maybe even do other heroes. The sad part with Bosk is that he used to be part of a solid gunline army for Separatists, but now you're just not. You have to get on objectives, and Bosk, as soon as he gets an objective and can be seen, he's going to be shot and he's going to die. Cad Bane. Now, Cad Bane is actually my favorite Star Wars unit, and in Legion he has a million tricks and has a high skill ceiling, and however he is now completely unplayable in Separatists. Separatists used to use the comms relay trick to make sure you never give him an order, and now that they no longer exist in the game, it has pushed Cad Bane out to obscurity. Cad Bane is not a kill unit. He's was designed in mind to be entirely objective focused, entirely objective, basically an objective demon, and be very sticky with all these dodges and his cards to throw suppression back on, and being, guaranteed 2 out with cover, but now they've changed the cover system, so he got more fragile. He basically just got a lose-lose situation, and the comms relay, until they bring it back for Separatists, which Spoiler alert, I think that will bring something unique to this faction just for that, because there's so many units that rely on it. He's just not worth it. Bounty's never going to trigger. Nobody's dumb enough to give you that. That should be the same with Bosk. While Bosk can get it a bit easier with the 2. Bosk's range 4, you can get it a bit easier. Cad Bane just isn't going to do that. Cad Bane's also locks you into really terrible order control turn 1 with his 3-pip, which you're always going to be playing, and it just doesn't hit like it used to anymore. Nobody really cares where Cad Bane goes anymore, and if there is an objective that it's got a Cad Bane token on it, suddenly it's like, well, it becomes very predictable and easy to figure out where he's going to be, because obviously you're going to want him to be able to start shooting and doing some chip damage, but it's going to be extremely obvious. The sad part about all that is that Cad Bane used to be a very fundamental part of Separatist and gave them a lot of objective play, but now most of the play with objectives with Separatists is just to move on with high wound red save units and make yourself really hard to remove. Alright, moving on to Asajj Ventress. Ventress is... I have a soft spot in my heart for Ventress. Ventress is a missile. She can go and remove units very easily, but can easily die to the clapback. For newer players, I'm gonna put her at A tier. Ventress is, again, like Dooku, one of the only units that can remove immune pierce and impervious as well. Don't forget that little tidbit. And she can, modify her own dices with her specialties, and can get reinforcements to make it easier. But her generic loadout is going to be burst of speed and saber throw, because of relentless and just wanting to get in there and start dice dumping people. She suffers from the same problem that she is an operative in a lot of lists. That if you want your independent trigger on her, you're going to have to rig your order control, so it kind of skews your list a little bit. However, don't be afraid to give her an order, especially if she's in a prime position, hiding somewhere, and she can jump out from behind that. I generally recommend for newer players to stay away from her. Newer players really need to learn how to not lose force users before turn 3. If you're losing a force user before turn 3, you've made a critical error, and chances of you winning are very slim unless something goes terribly wrong for your opponent. And Ventress is just prone to just people going, hey, I want to charge straight in. She's no Anakin, just remember that. Anakin can go and kill someone and most likely survive back. Ventress, not so much. Into the Fray is a staple as well, and so is defensive stance if you're going to go into it. If you're taking her, you're spending the points in the investment to take her so she can just pick up units left, right, and center. Don't take Bounty, as tempting as it is. Even if you think you can score it, the fact that you can remove immune pierce and impervious just means suddenly it's a threat that your opponent can't ignore, and with burst of speed, they're going to be thinking about it all game. So you can do some mind games with her. Geonosian Warriors. Geonosian Warriors, they have a soft spot in my heart. I have been known to run 60 of the buggers. These guys, I'm going to put them in C tier. They do take a bit of an experienced hand to pilot correctly, but when piloted correctly, they can do some insane damage. Just remember, they pump out, I believe, 20 shots for like under 100 points. If you take the reinforced guys, there's, I think it's 8 guys in a squad. 8 guys in a squad with the heavy or something like that. I can't remember. So black and white each. They're very strong. What makes them extremely strong is with General Grievous. If you can spam out orders, which again makes harder with comms really gone, but if you can get more orders on these guys and you're using the Ruthless keyword, just remember they get 4 actions. So 2 base, they've got their free jump, and then they've got another free from Ruthless. So you can, just move 3 times and shoot with these guys, or move in and tie people up or overrun a whole bunch of units. There is a lot of play, but they're entirely terrain dependent. They will just fold to a wet tape or paper towel. God forbid if anything like sleeper cells or arcs or anything go into them, they just will be picked up. But they are very good objective play. I highly suggest for newer players, if they want to start trying them, just to include a naked squad in their thing, just for objectives, just to get the feel for them. Just remember to hide them. You're going to be hiding behind every single piece of terrain, and they just want to get on objectives. And if they can't get on objectives or they can't be useful, then just move them in to tie something up for a turn, and if they die, they die. That's the best way to play them. Sunfac. Oh, Sunfac. I wish he was better. He is good in this with Grievous and Mass Geonosians if you want the extra order, but he is D tier otherwise. He just, again, super fragile unit, brings nothing to the table. Yes, you can go up to do the trick and not have Ruthless and use his 1-pip to get some extra out-of-action movement, or use it to make Geonosians during their own turn move into out of turn, move into melee with a free jump again to keep them safe from shooting. But for the points cost, you're better off. You're almost there on a Magna squad. Just take another Magna squad. Poggle falls into the same boat. He is just D tier at the moment. Brings nothing to the table. Slow as hell. Sure, gives a cool little thing, but if Poggle's he's 1-pip with a surge to crit on him. If he steps up that close, he's dying with it. Someone's going to bat an eye at him and he's going to die. Free order is nice, especially for Ruthless lists. But he doesn't really know. I don't think AMG knew what they were doing with him. His command cards are all over the place for different play styles. So he doesn't. If you do include him, it's like, oh, I get minimal benefit out of doing it and no other options. I.e., you're not going to use his 1-pip. He gets too close, he dies. His 2-pip is for Geonosians only. So okay, maybe I'll put him in a Geonosians list. But then he has Entourage B2, so then I don't get my orders. And then his 3-pip, you want to take mass B2s so you can get more repairs in. However, it's so telegraphed that if people will just focus down your B2s so you never get to repair. So he's just in a really awkward spot. And unfortunately, it makes him a bit sad. But again, could be good with Grievous Ruthless because you're getting another free order. So he's getting many free orders on your core as possible to do as much Ruthless as possible. Not sure. The Crab Droid. The Crab Droid is S tier, and if you're taking support slots, I highly suggest it's either this or the Droidicas. If you're tight on points, you go with the Droidicas. If you want more synergy, you go with the Crab Droid. The Crab Droid's scout ability, especially on the core units like B2s, Magnas, hell, even on Grievous himself, is just so valuable. And don't forget that they also have scout as well. So they are just absolutely insane, and as a close friend of mine pointed out recently, shout out to Rob, they get a cheaper impact gun than ATRTs and don't have to pay out of the nose for it. ATRTs for Rebels have surge crit, and I think they pay 15 points for their rotary blaster, or 20 points, and Crabs are only paying 10 points for their 5 black dice attack with impact 3. These guys answer everything. Crab Droids have Pierce on their melee, which makes them a melee threat. Never be afraid to double move into somebody. They never expect it in a turn just to attack the next turn in melee. They do so much more damage in melee than they will at shooting. However, you can just move them as gunboats, and they make really, really good anti-armor gunboats, especially if you can, you want to put attack protocols on them. I do suggest engagement protocols because you're generally going to move away from your heroes and sit on objectives and then just start shooting people. The general one on these upgrades is going to be engagement protocols, followed by your, I think it's the laser blast, the 5 dice black with impact 3, surge hit on this thing. It ticks all the boxes for everything. Synergistic, can function on its own, can hold its own in melee, and they are threats, so people do have to answer them. Aqua Droids. Funny that, the 2 aquatic themes are both S tier. Aqua Droids are S tier. I recommend every single Separatist player to play them. However, there is one thing that new players get wrong with these. They go last. They always go last, and they get orders on turn 1. Yes, they block line of sight. Yes, they can hide units behind them. But what you want to be doing is moving units up, and you want these guys to last longer. They have a really reliable dice pool. They do hit a little harder, but what makes them good, just like with any Separatist player, is a bit of advanced tactics. The longer you have more wounds and the more attrition damage you do to your opponent, the less they can deal with this in later turns. So you're basically taking out an entire turn, that meaning that they've only got 4 turns left to deal with 12 wounds of Aqua Droid wounds. And they don't want to be shooting Aqua Droids, just remember that. So if you go last with them turn 1 and then infiltrate them in front of units that they were maybe shooting at, or maybe went just before the Aqua Droids, then everyone's going to be forced turn 2 to try and deal with the Aqua Droids before the things behind them activate and try to go. Spoiler alert, they won't be able to do that. So it's basically a complete counterplay to how any alpha strikes work. You can also give them reinforcements, so you can be a little bit dicky with them and move them up even further after turn 1. But they are just hands down, they're currently cheap. Don't expect them to stay cheap, but even if they go up 50 points, then maybe we have a discussion about not taking them. But won't be surprised if they go up 20 points. If they go up 20 points, you're still taking them. If you go up 30 points, you're probably still taking them. They just fill everything they're a Separatist wet dream. They block line of sight, high wounds, really annoying. Please don't repair these guys if you have repair bots. You really want to be saving them for red save units like B2s and BXs and maybe a tank or something that when it breaks, so it still gets 2 actions to get an objective. These guys, they're there to be bullet sponges, and your trick is to make them last as long as possible. We're on to our last unit that just got announced, and it's going to be Hondo. I know we haven't heard too much about Hondo and his synergy, but again, Separatist mercenaries, they don't like him. They don't want him in the lists, despite what the shows would show you, where they use them consistently in at least competitive play, or at least let's say high level play. These guys are more of a detriment. You want synergy, you want order control. Mercenaries don't give you that. You don't have comms relay anymore to even try and make them work to give you order control. So if you're taking them, you're basically just handicapping or shooting yourself in the foot. And yeah, that's the sad state of affairs. You'll probably never see them in any decent Separatist players lists. Alright, well that's every unit that we've covered. I hope this helps with a lot of newer players. Sure, there might be some new units coming out towards the end of the year, or they might do some updates and something catch us off guard towards the end of the year, which I'm pretty sure they are doing anyway. But most of that, I'm sure, will be points adjustments. But generally, this list won't change. Maybe the only thing that's point sensitive in here is Droidicas, really. The rest of it is more to do with how the unit functions within the Separatist unit. And I hope this helps a lot of newer players when they're list building. And, even hell, if you don't play Separatists now, at least you know what the thought process behind Separatist players are. Alright, well, till next time, guys, remember, experience outranks everything.